St. Louis is in Missouri, and Joel is on line 1. Hi, Joel. You got a comment or question for Trent?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not really sure how to approach it, though. Are you?
Sure.
I thought I had a point, but I kind of lost it. I got caught up in the philosophical ping pong that you guys were playing with the previous caller, and that guy sounded like he was pretty well versed on pretty much everything from Plato to I don't even know.
From
Plato to Play-Doh and everything in between. But go ahead, Joel. We'll help you find what you're thinking about.
But Joel, you consider yourself a pro-choice person?
Yeah, I think so.
And so why?
So.
Why are you pro-choice?
Because I think that it requires the spark of religion the spark of organized religion to come to the conclusion that it's amoral to terminate an unwanted pregnancy. I think that there's an assumption that has to be made that there's some kind of a spark or some kind of a magic to humanness that doesn't exist in other animals and things like that. Let me ask you this: so, are you guys both vegans? Do you protest against any kind of wars, or do you go? Anything where a human would potentially be killed? Are you against the death penalty? I mean,
that's a wide variety of questions, Joel. I'll answer according to a Catholic perspective on them. I would say that human beings have intrinsic dignity and intrinsic rights. So they are beings of value and moral agents. They are different than other animals. So I would say that it is always wrong to directly kill an innocent human being. I would say, moreover, that when we are facing threats to human life, we ought to use non-lethal means whenever possible, and lethal means only as a last resort. So the Catholic Church teaches, for example, that the death penalty is inadmissible. It is something we ought not do in a society that has the means to restrain violent criminals. In war should be a last resort, and innocent civilians should not be targeted. But in some cases, it's regrettable that in combating grave evils in war, innocent civilians may die unintentionally. But we should never directly kill innocent people, but that may be a foreseen but unintended consequence of things like war. When it comes to non-human animals, I believe non-human animals do not have a right to life like human beings do. However, I believe that animals that are capable of suffering, I believe it is immoral to cause them suffering without a good reason. So I believe it's sinful to be cruel to animals. However, I think there is nothing immoral per se about eating animals. I believe that animals can be used to serve human needs, but it should be done in a way that causes the least amount of pain and suffering to the animals. So I guess that's be my broad brushstroke of understanding human value, animal value, and the ethics of killing. Is that would you like to start there?
I think you took care of that. I mean, there are different value systems that people come to the table with. And
sure.
I think
what do you think yours is?
Yeah. I think that I think we probably grew up in very different ways. I mean, I think that like
you'd be surprised
when you have like parents that were, heroin addicts that, committed suicide on Christmas Eve and
oh, good Lord, Joel,
like,
I'm sorry.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
I mean, they're just like to have this like optimistic and lovely view of humanity, like just I don't know. I think you have to grow up in this environment that tells you that that's the way things are, and I just think that there's another reality for a lot of people where bringing a child into a situation or a home would be basically torturing a baby.
Yeah. Well, Joel, I'm very grieved and saddened. I'm thinking about the situation you're in. How old were you when your parents took their own lives?
It doesn't matter.
Sure.
It was, yeah. It wasn't at the same time.
I see.
It was one, and yeah.
Well, were you a little kid or an older kid?
No, I was older.
I see.
But, I mean, it's
That's
just
horrible.
like the things that led up to that. I mean, it was, you know, I mean, there are some people that don't need to have children. I mean, they're just broken for one reason or another. And
It's ironic, Joel. You know, sometimes there are people I know who are the greatest people in the world, and they're infertile. They can't have kids. And there are some people who have children, and you wonder why in the world would God allow them to have a child. And for us, as a Christian, as a believer, I confess that I don't have an answer for every kind of evil that exists, why God would allow something like that to happen. I don't. The only answer I cling to and I've endured suffering, I know people who've endured horrible suffering and have tremendous faith in God, is that if God doesn't exist, we're just molecules in motion, and we live, we die, injustice happens, cruel evils happen, and there's no redemption for it. And we'll go back, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It doesn't matter. But if God exists, there's a way for that. The people who have been wronged, there's a way for them to be compensated with infinite, unending happiness. God will wipe away every tear. He will make it right. And I believe, honestly, Joel, that because we have that deep, burning desire inside, that for me, like, I believe that humans and animals are different, because humans have a deep, abiding understanding there are some things in the world that should not happen. Animals just go through life by instinct. It's kill or be killed, eat or be eaten. But human beings, we can think about things, and we can reach conclusions like when your parents took their own lives and abandoned you, or got hooked on drugs and were engaged in these destructive decisions. We can shout and we can say, no, that's not right. That's not the way things should be. That's not the way things should happen. And because we have that deep sense, there's a way they're not supposed to be a certain way. To me, that implies there is a way things are supposed to be. There's like a plan for the universe. It's broken right now, but it's moving. There's a way to move it towards being fixed. And I believe what fixes that is a man named Jesus Christ. And I firmly believe that with my whole being. So I believe that, Joel, where this show's about abortion, but what we're talking about here is even deeper than that. You can't see abortions right or wrong unless you see every human life matters, no matter who their parents are, no matter where they're born, no matter who they are. Every human being is precious, and it is good they exist. It's good you exist. I am glad you exist. You are a blessing to the world, and God has made it so that you exist to be a blessing to the world and for you to know him. So what I would like to do is just get your email, and I have a little booklet my friend Jimmy Aiken wrote called God's Love for You. I'd love to send to you. And I'll ask our listeners, and we've got hundreds of thousands, millions of people who listen to this show, to pray for you, Joel in St. Louis, Missouri, to pray for your heart, your healing, and your soul. And if you could give your email address to our call screener, I would like to get you some resources. But that's what I can offer you now. Is that at least a decent start?
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Joel, I really appreciate that you called just in a very honest way to share where you're coming from on this. I hope you'll call us again sometime.
Yeah.
I mean, we really are. I mean, when you share that, even that detail about your life, it's obvious that you have been through extraordinary things, and so it's a privilege just to get to speak with you. But maybe we can talk in the future. I hope that that's the case, anyways, Joel. I appreciate your call, and I think whatever your belief might be, I can tell you right now, there are many, many people praying for you, because they're telling us on Facebook that they're praying for you. So I hope we'll talk again. All right, Joel?
Okay, thank you.
God bless you, brother. I'm putting them on hold for you, Marie. We better take a quick break. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.